You believe in the devil?
You want the short answer or the long one?
You run around this city like it's your damn shooting gallery.
Yeah, what do? You act like it's a playground. You beat up the bullies with your fists, you throw them in jail, everybody calls you a hero, right? Only I do the one thing that you can't. You hit them and they get back up, I hit them and they stay down.
Come on, kill me now! You don't get to destroy who I am!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comics All Mode, the podcast where we just have fun and talk about movies, TV shows, and whatever. As you can tell by that intro, we're focusing mainly on Daredevil.
Yeah.
We had another banger episode this week. Lots to get into. As always, I'm joined by Landon, of course.
What's up, guys? Good to be back.
And so let's jump right in. There's a couple things. Did you see the Lilo and Stitch live action trailer?
I didn't see the new one. I know that there's a new one. I didn't watch that one.
Not bad. It's not bad at all. Not bad at all.
I think that the live action Lilo and Stitch movie actually looks decent. I saw a trailer a while back and I was like, this somehow captures the essence of that animated film and doesn't look entirely soulless.
Yeah.
So that one is definitely on my radar. I might actually check it out.
The full trailer dropped, I want to say today or yesterday.
Okay. Nice.
Really good.
Cool.
But
there was also, in terms of news, I think there was also, I just saw some images of Tom Holland on the set of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey.
Yeah.
Looks kind of interesting.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, Matt Damon's photo was dropped as like the first official image from that production. So that's a film that has me really excited because Christopher Nolan is on this hot streak after Oppenheimer, and The Odyssey is like one of the quintessential pieces of, ancient literature. And I think it'll be very epic. It'll have Christopher Nolan's style. It's got a great cast. So I'm looking forward to that one, but
yeah. This is the first time I've been interested and excited for a Christopher Nolan film in a minute. I still have not seen Oppenheimer. I know. Yeah, okay. Like, I get it. I need to watch it. I'll watch it eventually. And my camera just decided that the hand motions are back.
Oppenheimer is quite good. I've seen it all the way through twice, and that first time was in the theaters, and I actually got interrupted. But then I've seen it twice since then.
Nice.
It gets better, surprisingly. The first time you watch it, it's kind of a drag because it's so long. You don't really know where everything's going, but it is a film that on repeat viewings gets stronger and stronger, and it's really solid. And Cillian Murphy's fantastic. The whole intrigue around the creation of the bomb, there's the whole ticking clock against the Nazis. It's really solid. So let me know when you watch it because I will want to talk about it.
I will absolutely have to check it out. But let's get into Daredevil.
I'm ready. I'm always ready to talk Daredevil.
Any new thoughts that you've had as the first two episodes have kind of been able to, you've been able to have some time with those first two episodes? Any new thoughts that kind of came up this week as you were getting ready to watch last night's episode?
Okay, first thought that I have, Russ, is your tattoo looks freaking insane now.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Is that the new one?
The hand, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had it for now a month or a couple months now.
It is like the newer one though, right?
Yeah, this is the most.
It's looking
most
crazy,
recent.
dude.
This one's probably the most recent on this
It's
hand.
sick.
Thank you.
Anyways, you're doing this whole thing, and I'm like, what is he saying? I don't know. I'm just enamored by the ink on his hand. Sorry. Daredevil. Listen, I am going to be in the minority on this episode. I see a lot of people online talking about it, loving it. I've seen it twice. I liked it a little bit more the second time, I think, because the first time I was a little bit disappointed with what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't love it. I still don't think it's great. I think it's good. I think it's just a step down from the first two episodes. It's got a lot to offer. I have a lot of thoughts on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, in the span of last week's Born Again introduction, and then this week's third episode. I've watched now 4 full episodes of Daredevil season 1 with my fiance Emma.
Fair enough.
She's very into it, and it's given me a real clarity on how exactly these two television shows compare next to each other. And that first season is phenomenal. It's excellent so far. Perfect. No notes. So I think now that I have a remembrance about what the original Netflix show is like,
For sure.
I can't get that out of my head now. And then I went back to Daredevil last night, Born Again, and I was like, wow, those differences are actually more apparent than I thought. And that's not to say I don't want to judge Born Again on what it isn't. I want to judge Born Again on what it is, right? I'll just hit my mic. So in that respect, I'm trying to be fair to what Born Again is. It's not the old show. It is like a continuation, but it's very much its own thing, right? So trying to measure kind of how I look at the show and everything, but I'll be on the record as saying I didn't love it. I didn't think it was bad. It's a little more mixed for me. What do you think, Russ?
So yeah, I get where you're coming from. We talked about this. I did a whole rewatch of the first 3 seasons in preparation for this show. We are live. Sorry. And so I've been doing a lot of thinking about this show the last week, especially about the first 2 episodes. I am in the minority where I don't think the second episode was as good. I think the first episode was probably better. I love this third episode, and we can get into kind of like everything with that. I've done so.
Do you like this episode from last night more or less than
the first one?
2?
I actually think this was
more?
probably the best episode to me so far.
Really? I'm actually surprised to hear that.
And yeah, so the last week I've watched, again, I'm in conservative media, so obviously I'm watching Nerdonic, and I'm watching Classical Drinker, and I'm watching these guys talk about the show, and I'm also watching some like random I'm watching some random conservative like kids trying to get in the space that have they have like 5,000 followers on YouTube. Sure. And kind of stuff like that. I'm kind of trying to watch. I'm seeing what everybody's saying, and it's funny because we kind of talked about it last week, and apologies to everybody. I messed up and didn't get the podcast or the episode up on podcast. I will get that up tonight. But
it's like Daredevil. It's a double drop.
Yeah, last week was us like realizing that this was happening, and so we kind of just threw getting back into doing this together. Yeah. And that's also why you see the intro. We're trying to spice things up a little bit.
We're getting back to the swing of things for sure.
And so I've been watching, and the biggest question is, especially with Disney Plus shows, is it woke? We've seen Marvel's shows just absolutely just suck. Like just suck.
Putting it mildly.
Like specifically you look at one of the worst things ever written that somebody looked at and said, "Yep, we should definitely put that out," as in She-Hulk and Echo, to be fair. Both of those.
Echo is worse.
They should have 100%. Echo is worse 100%. But to that point, both those shows should have been, hey, we're going to write this off as a tax write-off and never let this they should have Batgirled these shows like instantly.
Bro, I'd take Batgirl over either of those projects.
Me too, because I would have I kind of wanted to see what Michael Keaton was going to do.
Bro, Brendan Fraser as Firefly.
So true. Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And so everybody is like, oh, it's, I was actually surprised because Nerdonic had a pretty good like review. He was like, I'm actually interested to see what's going on. We kind of had this talk a little bit about the Fisk and Trump parallels, which of course
Sure.
you can't walk away from. I have a very interesting take on that. I think out of everything that Disney Plus has done with Marvel, I think this is the least woke of the shows. I think the Donald Trump iconography, quote unquote, that you see with Fisk is more just in the fact of most billionaire CEO like guys going like with big personalities are always going to have a lot of the same traits. So there's that, plus having been someone, and you also, who we've both read Wilson Fisk on the comic page for the last couple of years. He has those those instances, you know?
It's power.
Yeah.
This guy has power, and he's got a presence.
And then, you know, that was the other thing. Like, they were like, oh, well, Fisk can fix it. It's so, like, it's very MAGA. It's like, no, it's not. Look at any politician ever, and if they can find a way to alliterate their name or their last name or, like, make a punny slogan out of their name, they're going to do it.
That's just marketing.
And that's just exactly. So that's where I think the Fisk and like Trump comparisons are very accidental. They're not on purpose. They're not trying to paint, they're not being like, hey, Trump is the bad, like Trump and Fisk, Trump is like Fisk because he's the bad guy. That's not, it doesn't feel that. It doesn't feel like that. Which is so nice because there's a lot of other mediums that we've seen this Trump derangement syndrome where that's been the case.
When it comes to, I think my take on this is, I don't think it's necessarily accidental, but I don't think they're leaning into it as much as they could.
You're right.
Which, you know, in a day and age where Trump got reelected and he is now the president of the United States again, they could be leaning into Fisk being a sort of surrogate for the Trump of the Marvel, you know, the New York political field. They're not leaning into that nearly as much as they could have. And so when we title the episode like, is Daredevil woke or not? I agree with you. It has a lot less of that woke stuff going for it. But there's
still instances. There's still stuff.
Yeah.
We talked about that with, you know, the law partner and the detective.
Well, I think in answer to the question, I just think it's not necessarily woke, but it is definitely political, and it's not trying to shy away from being political and make. We'll see that, you know, upcoming with the Punisher stuff. We'll see what kind of stance it takes and what it's trying to say in regards to that. I think that's probably going to be its most political statement that it's trying to convey is like
100%.
The cop thing.
100%.
But when it comes to Fisk, you know, you mentioned the parallels, and I think it's just because, you know, at its core, I don't follow politics too much, but like Trump, whether you love him or hate him, he's like a controversial figure. A lot of people are divided on what they see about him. And I think that's the same way with Fisk. You have a lot of people who know that, hey, this guy's been to prison. There's some shady stuff going on. But also you got the side that he can fix things. He is, you know, he's different now. You know, there's a lot of angles that you can approach a character like Fisk and Trump. But like I said, I don't think the showrunners are necessarily leaning into that. We're only 3 episodes in. I think there's 9 episodes.
Yeah, for sure. There's 9 episodes.
Change that whole narrative if they wanted to. But yeah, I don't think it's, you know, leaning into a lot of the tropes that, you know, the woke media or whatever, these woke projects from Disney really do. It's no Acolyte. We'll say that. Like Acolyte.
Yeah. Which also, crazy enough, so going into this episode, I don't know if you saw the news that Daredevil topped out for opening night under both Acolyte and Agatha. Which ultimately what I'm going to say to that is, guys, we've spent the last probably 3 to 4 years at this point just having to shovel shit when it comes to Marvel TV. So the fact that this, and even just Disney Plus shows in general, so the fact that this has such a low opening viewership makes sense when nobody has any faith in Disney anymore. Like that's honestly that's where I think about it from.
I think there's a lot of anti-Disney sentiment going on right now, just
100%.
because they have not released the strongest projects. You know, their track record in the past 2 to 3 years, ever since like the COVID pandemic, has been shoddy at
Yeah,
best.
for sure.
And that's speaking to like big name franchises that appeal to large quantities of people. You're talking Marvel, you're talking Star Wars. In a project like Daredevil, which even in its marketing, it was leaning a little more into the darker aspects of what vigilante heroism looks like. It's not your Spider-Man going quipping around Washington D.C. or Venice, Italy. It's gritty, it's raw. You're showing bones break. Like that's a level of intensity of Marvel that we haven't seen so far, and that's automatically gonna mean you're cutting off potential audiences from that. Something like Marvel or like The Acolyte appeals to a lot more people.
Yeah,
just in terms of like what it is offering. So it doesn't surprise. I didn't hear the statistic that you gave, but it doesn't surprise me that the Daredevil Born Again viewership is not up to par with like even other Marvel projects, because it's kind of a niche project, we'll say.
for sure.
Yeah.
Do
you want to jump on into the episode though?
But yes, let's jump into the episode. I really like this episode. I'll kind of go first.
That's fine. We'll hear from you first since you're more positive on it.
Yeah, I really
not that I'm negative. I just I offer a different take, I think.
Interestingly enough, one thing that I did find out today, I think, is that supposedly episode 2 and 3 were supposed to be the openers. Like episode 1 was completely reshot.
Yeah.
During the reshoots and the retooling. So episode 1 and 2 were supposed to be the main show, like the main first 2 episodes. Kind of makes sense. Definitely really glad that they reshot, like had episode 1 as it different than originally. And apparently, like Karen wasn't even gonna be mentioned. Like she never existed. Foggy was still gonna die, but it was gonna happen like literally in the first like 3 minutes.
Yeah,
like,
they were just gonna gloss over a lot of.
They weren't gonna. Yeah, so they were just.
They went back and reshot the whole first 20 minutes.
Bullseye wasn't even supposed to be in the show at all either. So, anyways. This episode does procedural kind of lawyer so well. I think this is great. There's a couple.
I like it too.
A couple great scenes. One of the things that I really this show continues to just prove that. And now I'm blanking on his name for some reason. That plays Matt
White
Murdock.
Tiger.
Yeah, no,
Charlie
Cox. Charlie Cox is literally the best casting for him. Like,
Perfect
casting,
yeah.
Would it be nice if he was a redhead, because that would be like more comic accurate? Sure, but like it still works. Also, the beard. I like bearded Daredevil, and I think that's just a comic preference as well. That I just like bearded Daredevil more, or like scraggly Daredevil.
It's a good look.
They continue to use Matt's powers in really cool ways, especially without him being in the suit. At one point, the cop who assaulted White Tiger is up on the stand, and he's lying, like just lying out of his teeth. And Matt essentially hears the heart rate change in White Tiger and just kind of leans over and says, "Hey, you cannot react." And I thought that was such a cool, like, yes, it's him using his powers, but it's also him just reassuring, like, being human. And I think that's one of the really cool parts of this show so far, is we're getting, and we got it in the Netflix show. And and that's why we talked about this with the first two episodes is I'm tired of not being in the Daredevil suit. I kind of wish
we didn't get any of that this
and
episode.
we didn't get any of that this episode, but I also didn't mind it, weirdly enough, in this episode.
I don't either, because I love the lawyer procedural stuff. I love the
Exactly.
trial. I love Hector Ayala taking the stand. I love
White Tiger was
Scott
great.
taking the stand. Like, that's all very interesting.
So when Matt decides that he's going to just blow the case and just tell everybody that he's
hold
White
on
Tiger.
before we get there.
Okay.
You were touching on like Matt's ability to hear and smell and all his senses going crazy. I think that's what makes Daredevil such a great character, is that he is fighting for truth and justice, but not only is he fighting that, he knows what the truth is. You cannot slip anything past Matt. So, the audience is let in on that when you're in these law proceedings. You know what the truth is. One, because you're the viewer. You see things that happen. Certain characters don't get that point of view. But when you're following a guy who can detect heartbeats and know if you're lying or not, that brings a certain level of drama that is not offered by other comic book characters or just fictional characters in general. I don't know anybody else that can detect truth to that degree other than Matt Murdock, Daredevil, right? Yeah. And sometimes like Matt has to withhold the truth because he can't let anybody know that, hey, I can hear your heartbeat because I'm Daredevil. Like, he's got the whole secret identity thing, but that means he also has to keep secret what he knows to be true, right? So that's what makes it so interesting. And we see that a lot in Daredevil season 1 as well. And I think earlier, or last episode that we recorded, I think I said something to the effect of, I love what the two Born Again episodes did in terms of showing off Daredevil's senses, right? You have the aspect ratio change and the lens flares and things like that. That's all great. We didn't really get a lot of that in this episode.
We didn't get a lot of that this episode.
Which I think is kind of a misstep. I don't know if there was like a different person directing that, the reshoots or anything like that, but
I think it's the same.
For that to come back,
Yeah, and that may be, I get it. Like, I kind of agree with you. I think there's definitely a little bit of a tonal shift, or maybe visual shift, I should say, in this episode compared to the first two. And I think it's because this episode was probably, a lot of it was probably left unchanged.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of reshoot in this. I think
the last
to begin with.
I think the scene that was obviously reshot was the final scene where you see a certain skull.
Oh yeah,
as they walk, because there's a weird cut there that I noticed the first time, and then especially noticed the second time.
Well, there's a weird cut. There's some weird maybe editing choices. Overall, one of my critiques of the episode was it kind of was paced strangely. I couldn't necessarily tell if this trial was taking place in like a couple hours over the course of a week. I know law proceedings can be very drawn out, and especially a high profile case like this, is the Hector Ayala trial taking place over the course of months? What's the timetable look like here? Right.
Well, so I think it was I think it was like a week.
I mean, it had to be because you go back and forth between witness protection with Cherry and Nikki Torres, and they have to get him to the courthouse, but then it's like they took a recess or something, or maybe it's a different day. They come back, they do all their introductions again. It's like I kind of was lost in like, where are we in the trial? Okay, we're bringing witnesses forth, but is this all happening in a day? Is it not? I mean, a lot of information happens, and we see the whole trial. The trial concludes. It like begins and concludes.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I was a little bit lost on that
one episode.
But
I think it's purposely ambiguous on timing.
Maybe it's not interested in exploring the timeline.
Yeah, I don't really think that was their focus. I think the focus was the trial. I do think the trial took a week because there's a couple times where you kind of see the change of day, and so I definitely think it took about a week.
And again, it's not that important. It's just something that I was like, oh, it kind of took me out. And it's like, I'm watching a TV show because where are we in the sequence of events here?
I want to know your thoughts on this, because the first time I watched it, it bugged me a little bit. The second time I watched it, it made a little bit more sense that I didn't care as much.
Okay.
You see Wilson Fisk, he's talking to Vanessa, and then it shifts as he's like rubbing his fingers to Matt in the bathroom, washing his hands.
I love that.
And that was a really cool edit.
Yeah,
as you know, two video editors here, we're both over here like, oh, that was a really cool edit. That's really nice.
Like that.
I love that. And then you get to Matt, and the cop that he beats up in Nikki Torres's apartment walks in.
Yeah, one of them.
And so, we both I talked to you about this. I think it's a little weird that there are so many people that are starting to find out Matt's identity. Or at least know that Matt is blind, but is very capable.
He's not exactly. He's kind of burying the lead with his blindness. He's
exactly. It's like, okay, so you can see, but how much can you see that we still have to
good enough
you're
to
blind.
Beat up 2 men in an apartment.
And then
which most people who have sight can't even do that.
Exactly. Yeah. And then Matt goes to question this officer back on the stand. And he gets real snarky, and he makes a joke about the best thing for a black eye is faster hands, and I think it's because
How'd you feel about it?
I think it's because Netflix did not focus in on kind of Murdoch's snarkiness, and I know I'm used to his snarkiness because of the comics, based on even just. Specifically, if you look at just Zdarsky's run, it's super thought-provoking and dry, but then Matt's also kind of an asshole, so he's gonna be sarcastic. And I don't know if it was that it was the way Charlie Cox played it, acted it or what, but it really threw me off.
Okay.
And there's another point in time where he makes a joke again, is kind of sarcastic and makes a joke. And it was weird. I don't know if I'm still trying to reconcile the themes.
Yeah.
Knowing that this is different, knowing that this is Disney Plus show, knowing that this is, Marvel TV Marvel in general is pretty jokey. They can't ever really just stick with the seriousness,
So I think, I'm actually on the same page with you on this. There were a couple of moments that felt, I don't want to say out of character, because obviously the Matt Murdock we see in Born Again is a different Matt Murdock than we saw in the Netflix show.
No, well, technically he's not.
A couple of moments,
but that's the thing is, technically he's not.
It's been years. People can change
for sure.
in years.
Yeah, okay, fair.
And he's got a different firm. He has a different partner. I mean, I have to believe that would have some sort of.
Yeah,
there's differences. But I do feel like maybe out of character is right. There are a few instances of dialogue where he's calling people buddy. Yeah. That kind of threw me off. He's calling Hector Ayala buddy. It's that's your client. Matt Murdock to me has always been very professional. He has a softer side. I've never known him to be super snarky either. That was kind of something new. I did, however, when he's confronted by, I believe it's Officer Powell in the bathroom right after the match cut with the knuckles and everything. The cop walks in. It's clearly the same guy that Matt beat up in Nikki Torres's apartment. And then they kind of get, the cop takes the stand and they have sort of a verbal sparring session between them, right? Because you have Matt cross-examining the witness. You have Powell lying his ass off on the stand. And yeah, he makes that remark about, boxing and fast hands and all that. It's clearly meant to be a jab at Powell. I didn't mind that so much because Powell's giving it to him. It's not like it's one-sided. It's not like Matt is making fun of this guy for getting his ass beat. Powell is like a bad dude. He's a corrupt cop. He made a jab about Matt's blindness in the bathroom. So I kind of like the rivalry that they have going on. And while I haven't known Daredevil to be like the snarkiest character, like he's no Spider-Man by any means.
Right.
Matt is a very confident individual, right?
Sure.
And like you said, he's a very capable individual. And so he knows that he can whoop these cops. He knows that he can take them all on. And I think this is just that overconfident aspect of Matt. And I think he also knows at this point he's got the star witness, Nikki Torres, in his back pocket. He knows that he's going to come around on top with this trial because he's got the ace, right? It's only a little bit later that we find out Nikki Torres, right? This street urchin addict. He's unreliable. He ends up cowering from the stand, and he's removed as a witness. So Matt's case falls apart. But at the time, right, like he was very confident that he had what it took to win this case.
Yeah,
because of the ace, right? So I didn't mind that so much. It did seem a little bit jarring at first to hear that kind of, I guess, talk from Matt. But the more I think about it and watching it, I actually kind of dig it.
Yeah, no, I kind of dig it too.
Yeah. But the buddy thing, like calling people buddy, and
also nobody in
except
on this
Foggy,
planet,
maybe
nobody on this planet should be calling someone buddy. Just
and not
FYI.
in like a lawyer setting.
No more. Like buddy needs to be like banned. Other than
Hey, buddy.
other than like you with your like guy friends. Never. You should not be calling people buddy.
Yeah, he calls at least two people buddy. I can't remember. Nikki Torres, or not Nikki Torres, but the Private Eyes.
Cherry calls
Cherry,
Nikki
somebody.
Torres buddy.
Anyways,
Which Cherry calling the crackhead or the the drug addict buddy makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Still warming up to that character, but again, it's only 3 episodes in.
Yeah.
Okay,
Nikki
so
Torres, terrible, the worst. I don't know if we'll see any more of him. Maybe.
I mean, I liked. I will say, like, I liked the
I thought
wrench.
he had a little spine to him, but
I liked the wrench being thrown in there that he decides to not.
yeah, he backed down. I thought that was interesting. However,
that was a really interesting choice.
this kind of gets into what you were gonna mention earlier, which is something I do have a problem with.
So we're gonna get into that because I know both of us kind of have interesting thoughts. So Matt decides to throw his own monkey wrench into the process, and that is essentially out White Tiger to everybody, just to the world. Yeah. He goes, hey, you know what? You throw yourself in, you put yourself on the line all the time because you're White Tiger. And I thought interesting. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it. Now, again, this is a larger conversation that Marvel has been having in this world for a while. Now, yes, Infinity War / Endgame reset a lot of the world. I do remember that they mentioned it in passing in Captain America: Brave New World. Again, never watched it because I only saw clips.
They mentioned what, like
the
Atlantis?
The Sokovia Accords. Like this is a conversation like heroes having secret identities. And again, this is the biggest point too. And this is one thing that we mentioned last week is that Marvel is really defining the difference between heroes and vigilantes, as essentially heroes do not have a secret identity. Vigilantes do. I think that's becoming more and more clear. I think
that's a good distinction, yeah.
I think that's becoming more and more clear because they threw, Fisk threw Spider-Man's name in as a vigilante, which makes sense because nobody knows who Spider-Man is anymore.
Thank God.
Thank God.
I like the
Seriously.
mask stuff. I like the secret identity
and
stuff.
that's the thing.
compelling.
I do too. But I also
Mhm.
understand why it didn't make sense for Marvel in the beginning.
Yeah. So are you pro Matt exposing Hector Ayala as White Tiger in the trial?
So no, I actually think that was a bad call on his part.
Okay.
Now
I'm in agreement on that. I didn't like it.
That being said,
there's layers to it, but like
that being said, there's a lot
exposure
there.
is kind of
There's
odd.
a lot there. I understand a couple of things with Matt right now, based off of what we've seen, is that he does not want to. He's done with Daredevil, right?
He does not want to get back into it.
But there are so many things right now pushing him to that edge, right? And this is where you start to see
I think it's purposeful.
The idea of Matt Murdock as technically Daredevil is the true version and Matt is just the mask. And I think Matt is having that war right now with himself. Whereas, the last episode, he was like, no, you don't want to do this. No, you don't want to do this. No, you don't want to do, like, talking to himself, trying to calm himself down until he just beat the crap out of these police officers. So you have that. And then on top of it, now you have Kingpin showing up and coming out into the woodwork. And so, I think we're seeing Matt push to a desperation.
Definitely.
That he doesn't even realize he's at. And so thus
he's definitely being pushed. Yeah.
He pulls out the mask.
I definitely think, because the whole diner sequence between Matt and Fisk really sets up the plot. Matt and Fisk both have alter egos, identities that they're trying to suppress, right? And I think the diner sequence sets all that up really well, is because, one, I believe Fisk is trying to bring out Daredevil in Matt. I think that's kind of obvious.
100%.
I think that's why he's got
that became more obvious this episode to me too.
Yeah, and I think the Punisher stuff will lean a lot into that. I think the acts of some of these corrupt cops will really make Matt. It's going to anger him, but he's also going to realize he can't deal with this specific issue unless he dons another identity, which is going to be Daredevil.
Yeah.
In regards to like it's a smart move to bring forward Hector Ayala's identity as the White Tiger in the trial.
It basically guarantees his win.
I wouldn't say guarantee, but it definitely strengthens the case, because where they are after the addict, gives into his cowardice and is just off, they have nothing. Hector is going to go to prison forever if they don't bring something forward.
For sure.
Where my issue is, especially Matt, who has a secret identity and who was a vigilante for many years, I am almost angered that the writers, I believe it's the writers' fault, did not write a scene where Matt talks to Hector about this. Because it's not like Matt Murdock and his law partner and even Cherry. It's not like
honestly,
these people don't know Hector is White Tiger. They do.
Right.
The smart thing would be to meet with your client, have a discussion about it, and then you can also have the gotcha moment in court. You can have all of these things, but the one difference is that it's Hector's choice to put out this information.
Yeah,
and the fact that Matt did not cut him in on that conversation at all speaks to either Matt is like really, really deeply against his own vigilante side, that he's willing to out somebody else's in order to get them to not be a vigilante anymore, right? Because in the prison, Matt confronts Hector. He's like, you can never put on this costume again. You know that, right? After this trial, you're done. Yeah. So subconsciously, I think Matt knew, okay, one, I'm going to win this trial by revealing this information. Two, Hector is not going to be a vigilante anymore. That is the only thing that he gains by not having Hector consent to getting his identity revealed in court. I believe.
So here's the thing. I just thought I was just kind of,
which is crazy for Matt Murdock Daredevil.
I was just kind of thinking about this.
Another hero. It's crazy.
I was just kind of thinking about this. I think the point is that he and Matt and White Tiger have this conversation in the cell.
They meet a couple times, which are good. I like those scenes. I love when they're just expressing, in the jail cell.
Yes, but they're talking about being a vigilante, right?
Yeah.
And White Tiger talks about how it's part of him. It's in his bones.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, this isn't something that, like, he, this isn't something where he's making the choice. It's a part of him. That's the point. I think the point that Matt is making by outing White Tiger as White Tiger to the world is that he
well, I mean, Hector is going to be a vigilante no matter what.
He's trying to come across where he's trying to say, hey, I actually, there, like, Daredevil is not just the other half of me. He's trying to get it, like, he wants someone else to essentially tell him, hey, you're good, like, you're gonna be fine, like, you can walk away from Daredevil and never have to worry about it again. And
he
so
wants, yeah. I mean,
he's trying to force that on someone else so that it proves his point that he's gonna be fine not being Daredevil. I think
that's a good point. I think he is trying to, gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? He's trying to imprint his own story onto Hector Ayala's story. I think what you are getting at is he wants to prove that you can be a vigilante, you can be outed as a vigilante, and then still have a successful life afterwards. Yes. The problem is Hector Ayala lives, breathes, and dies by his vigilante code. He's going to put this costume on and go out and fight crime no matter what. And I think now that he's dead, White Tiger gets shot in the head at the end of this episode.
Yeah, so Matt wins the case.
I think that's going to show that Matt really can't have his cake and eat it too. He's got to.
Well, this is also going to add to his Catholic guilt. This is going to add to his Catholic
Well, we'll see. The series is not really exploring that.
Well, for sure. But no, this is absolutely
maybe he will go back to
Mass. He's going to feel guilty because he's going to realize that he did this.
It is Matt's fault that White Tiger is dead.
It's Matt's fault that White Tiger is dead.
Whereas if Hector was like, yes, I'm okay, Matt, with you revealing my identity in court, it would be on Hector. It wouldn't be on Matt. But now that it is, so I guess the writers knew what they were doing in doing this. If episode 4 explores Matt's guilt over getting Hector killed, I will take back what I said. I will be on board because at the moment, I'm a little upset that Matt would be so hypocritical about this and just expose a fellow vigilante. We'll see where it goes. I think at the end of Born Again, we'll do a whole recap and everything will make more sense and the pieces will fall together and everything. But at the moment, that was really jarring. I was like, oh my gosh, why would he do that?
Next episode definitely is when we see Punisher.
We're going to see Punisher. I really hope we get Matt back. I think Matt's going to don the Daredevil persona again to go after Castle because they have history there. He knows that.
I don't think so.
You don't?
I think mainly based off of footage we've already seen, I think he goes after Castle in plain clothes. And so,
that's right. They do have that scene in like a locker room, don't they? Yeah, Matt is in
because every time we see Punisher in the Punisher, he's good. He's shaved. He's clean cut, right? That scene that
he's got a beard though.
But that's the thing. The scene that we see him with Matt,
I see where
he's got a beard. So I think we're gonna see Punisher show up. Now that's also where here's the biggest thing I've been seeing this all over Twitter today since yesterday was when the episode dropped. You can still hear me, right? I was playing with my audio a little bit.
I got you.
My gain was too high.
I'm on board.
I could hear myself like breathing even when the mic was all the way over here, and I was like, "What in the hell?"
No, you're good.
So one thing I've been seeing all over X today is everybody was like, "Why the hell would they introduce this character for 2 episodes and then kill him?"
Yeah.
Now, there's
I have an answer.
Couple reasons. A, you know, this this actor died
Right.
during
He shot all his scenes. He completed
he completed all of his scenes
shooting.
So they were already planning for him to die. Now, that being said, the reshoot is that they made it more clear who was shooting him, or quote unquote who was shooting him.
Right.
So that's the only reshot scene out of that part.
Maybe I haven't heard that be confirmed or anything, but it makes sense.
All of his scenes were shot. So there's that. So the actor's already gone. So it works out like this is that character. 2, in the comics, the character that is most associated to White Tiger is actually his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's an opportunity here where you have the daughter come up as the next person to take that mantle.
Sure.
And she is going around throughout with vengeance. And
Sure.
There's an opportunity there where if the show lasts long enough, you could have White Tiger become a protege of Daredevil in the same way that Blind Spot became a protege for Daredevil, and with the whole Muse thing. So there's that also. But then also, again, we've just talked about this. This is a character that in a lot of ways mirrored how Matt feels about himself, and also a purer version of how Matt used to feel about himself when he donned the Daredevil costume. This is a character still not disillusioned with away from his ideals of being Daredevil.
Yeah.
And so this obviously is, in a lot of ways, to me, this is a way that you mirror everything that Matt and Daredevil are as people, or as a person, while also giving Matt a lot of things to chew and a lot of things to think about.
I think my issue with the whole White Tiger thing, for one, I love the portrayal of the actor. I can't remember the actor's name. May he rest in peace. It's unfortunate that he did die of cancer, I believe. So not a good way to go. I don't think we were ever meant to have any more from this character other than what we got. I don't think Hector Ayala's story had any reshoots. 1, because you're right, they couldn't. 2, because like you were saying, White Tiger's story is the linchpin for Daredevil's story. It's the linchpin for Matt getting back out there. And when I was talking about the Punisher stuff, Matt is going to be forced to don the Daredevil persona to go after Castle, but then he's going to realize that Frank is not actually the one operating as the Punisher who killed White Tiger. He's going to realize this is not Frank. This is something else. And then he's going to probably go to Frank in his plain clothes, like you were saying. So when I said he's going to go after the Punisher, he's going to don Daredevil because he realizes, okay, I can't confront the Punisher without my own sort of persona.
See, I'm gonna.
But then he's gonna realize that it's the cops or something.
I'm gonna kick back on that. I don't think we're going to see. I think we're gonna see Castle next episode. I do not think we are going to see the Daredevil uniform, the Daredevil costume, until either the last scene of next week's episode or the next episode.
I want it back.
I know it sucks. I know it sucks.
I understand
but
what you're saying too, though.
The reason I'm saying that is because the trailer for episode 4 came out.
Oh, did it?
I think so. Yeah.
See this right now.
and Matt is in plain clothes and steals like a robber's hood and puts the he looks like the Red Hood essentially on. So again, this is that whole in the Defenders.
Oh, there's a promo. You're right.
Yeah, this is the
I gotta
whole
watch that.
in the Defenders where he does this thing where he just throws a scarf over his head so that people don't recognize him.
Well, maybe I should clarify, like, not donning the suit we saw in episode 1, but like he will have to hide his face if he's going to confront like the Punisher as a vigilante.
See,
I say that because
fair enough.
I think it's obvious that Fisk is trying to play the vigilantes against each other.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
And I think that's why he's the one pulling the strings behind the corrupt police force who all have Punisher tattoos and this and that. I think it's going to be revealed that he is mobilizing this specific sect of cops into operating like the Punisher in order to pit the vigilantes against each other, prove that they're more destructive than helpful so that he can then outlaw them. I think he's going to single out Punisher and Daredevil to kind of go at war with each other. One, because look at the story of look at the Fisk scenes we got in this episode, right? I don't have a ton to say about the Vanessa stuff, but I do think it's interesting that he is unconcerned and unbothered with the fact that the criminal element in New York City right now is running rampant. There is no kingpin figure to keep a tight leash on these different gangs and criminals, and they're killing each other. They're slaughtering each other in the streets. And he mentions to Vanessa, that let them kill each other. They're rats. And I think he has the same outlook on the vigilantes. He wants all of these players gone. And so we see the criminal element devouring each other. You see what is his name? Buck Cashman, his aide, his political aide. We see him stoking the fires. We see him like kind of making moves in the underground scene. And then
that's not. But okay, hold on.
For the vigilantes,
the aide was not on Kingpin's orders though. They were on Vanessa's orders. His aide going to the criminals was on Vanessa's orders.
You think?
Oh no, he literally said they said it. Kingpin and Vanessa have a conversation, and he goes, "What did you do?" And she said, "I sent him to offer whatever the tracksuit or the other dude, the fur collar dude, the 1.8."
Vanessa said that that she sent him.
Yeah.
Because I remember him saying something about, I don't work for Fisk, I work for the man. I didn't exactly know what that meant. I thought the man meant like the people. I thought he was trying to pay off the criminals.
I think what he's saying,
violence.
I think the man is, he actually does work for Kingpin, but he works for the whoever is at the top of the food chain. So while Kingpin was off recovering from his wounds, Vanessa took over. So he answers to both of them. But then that's also and this is the cool part to me, this is why I think the Kingpin stuff is actually starting to grow on me again finally.
I like it. I like what they're doing with Fisk.
Fisk says, I have higher aspirations.
I do recall that.
There has to be a bigger level of chaos. Like there has to be more chaos and more.
That's my point exactly.
So that
he wants chaos. He wants them to kill each other.
A new higher form of what's the word? Which
is a world without vigilantes, without the criminal element. But he wants this to come about. He's trying to tear down the current atmosphere. He's trying to tear down the current climate in regards to the criminals and the vigilantes in order to have none of them at the end of it all. And that's why my whole thing this morning on the Punisher actually being Frank Castle, which after a second rewatch, I don't even know why I thought it's definitely not Frank.
Yeah, it's definitely not.
Because the vest is all wrong, the symbols are wrong.
Okay,
I'm not on board with that anymore, but I do still think that Fisk is trying to play both sides against each other so that he can outlaw all of it and get rid of all of it.
So
I don't know exactly what that looks like, but and
um,
I didn't read so much into that scene with Buck Cashman because it didn't seem too super important, but I was trying to pay attention to the Fisk stuff because he mentioned how he wants everybody. Yeah.
So here's what I think. I think Fisk is, in a lot of ways, like Vanessa saying, "You're leaving me out in the cold." I think that's on purpose. I think he is actually very much so like we saw in Devil's Reign. He is trying to sow as much chaos as possible, and to the point of overwhelming. His thing is he wants to discredit vigilantes, and so I don't think the cops are working are essentially at the machinations of Kingpin.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Okay.
I think the trial of White Tiger was a happy accident that Kingpin was hoping would go his way so that he didn't have to become more involved. I think
So you think he's going to take advantage of what happened with the trial? He's not the architect of it. Okay.
Exactly. So what I think is, and this actually mirrors Murdoch in a lot of ways. I think Kingpin wants to be just the mayor of New York City with aspirations to maybe one day becoming president of the United States. He wants to become a big political figure. And his big thing that he wants to run on is no vigilantes.
Right.
And so
you're in agreement there for sure.
He sees this trial and he's like, "Oh, fantastic. The city is going to help me take care of this. Like I will not have to manipulate the city to do what I want it to do. It will accomplish it on its own." And then the trial goes in a different direction. And so then now he's going, okay, I have to take more control over how events lay out. And thus you start to see the little bit of the playing with the criminal element. He's not getting his hands dirty yet, but he is still allowing he's leaving them hands off because he knows the strife it will cause.
Yeah.
He wants that chaos because that chaos will then pull the vigilantes out.
He knows what he's doing for sure. He's definitely playing both sides.
And so then on the other side of that, you have Daredevil and Matt going like, "Hey, I don't want to be Daredevil anymore. So other people can handle this." And so with the idea of White Tiger, it's essentially he's like, "Oh, maybe the city will essentially help me play this out."
Right.
And it doesn't turn
out I think so.
Obviously.
I think so. I think we're both kind of in the same vein of thought over where things are going. Sure. Perhaps maybe our viewpoints differ in like how Fisk is exactly accomplishing these things.
Oh, for sure.
Either way, I think Fisk's story is compelling. I like where Matt's story is going. I do think the Hector. So the original vision for the series, I think the trial of Hector Ayala was like the first thing right out the gate because it's what kicks Matt back into gear, I think,
for sure,
as we're going to find. And the thing about Fisk leaving all the criminals to like kill each other, and you mentioned like Vanessa feels like he left her out in the cold. I think he's intentionally doing that because
100%. He
wants Vanessa to himself. He wants her back. She's still kind of holding on to the old criminal ways, by mentioning I can wash money through this art gallery and things like that. He's like, I think Fisk in his mind is just thinking, let go of all of that. Come back to me. I have a better way. I'm making a better world. My policies are different. We're going to bring forward this new era of New York together. I want you by my side, right? And going back and watching season 1 with my fiance has been really illuminating for one, Fisk and Vanessa's story is so compelling. The way that they meet, right, in the art gallery. There's the incredible line where Vanessa's like, "Well, you're not gonna." He offers to take her out. She says, "I can't. I have to work." And he's like, "Okay, another time." And she's like, "You're not gonna buy the whole art gallery in order for me to be free and go on a date with you?" And he says, "A woman that can be bought isn't worth having." Right? They have such a really interesting dynamic in that first season, and I can just see watching Fisk in Born Again. He wants that dynamic back so much. I do think he still has a lot of feelings for Vanessa. And so letting her handle on crime die out is going to make sure that Fisk is the only thing that Vanessa has left.
Absolutely.
I have no idea how Muse is going to fit into this.
Muse is going to be a very interesting.
I thought he was going to show up this week because I feel like we saw him last week with the. We didn't get a lot from Matt's girlfriend either. I thought that was going to come into play, but we're not there yet.
She did have a really good moment with Matt talking about the win.
Yes,
like at the apartment.
Yeah,
talking about Foggy.
Mentioned Foggy, yeah.
And I think that was really cool because she is a therapist. Of course, she's like she doesn't want
right.
her relationship with Matt to be where she kind of turns into his therapist, but she also wants to be able to like have those conversations about people in their lives, and especially Matt's relationship with Foggy.
Yeah.
A really good moment. This episode had a lot of really good moments, just quiet moments. The conversation with White Tiger and Matt in the cell where he talks about the frogs, like all of that. Just it was really pretty.
There are some really nice dialogue moments, and that harkens back a lot to the old series, which really let scenes breathe. Yes. They let the dialogue play out. Absolutely. They put their characters and their beliefs and their thoughts like in full display in scenes, right? And that kind of stuff does not bother me, right? If we have a whole episode where Matt doesn't don the Daredevil outfit, I'm totally fine because he has interesting people surrounding him. He himself has an interesting story. The lawyering that we see is all very interesting. My only other gripe about this episode was it felt like all of the momentum that we had from episodes 1 and 2, especially with 2 ending with Matt kind of letting the devil out. He's just wailing on these cops. I kind of was like, oh my gosh, did he kill one of them?
Dude, that's what I thought. I thought
he might have
killed
one of them.
I thought he killed both of them.
It was insane.
The way that one cop flipped, and the way his back and like his chest hit the floor, I'm like, there's no shot this dude's alive.
It was brutal. And so all of that momentum, I kind of felt was brought to just a dead halt.
Yes,
which I didn't vibe with so much. I thought we were going to get Matt like really starting to deal with that Daredevil anger that he has, right? It's coming.
I would have been okay.
I
would have been okay this trial lasting 2 episodes and them having spent the other half dealing with the fallout of him letting the devil out.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen this before, right? In season 2 of Daredevil, we saw Frank, the trial of Frank Castle was key to that first 2, 3, 4 episodes of that season. And I definitely think there is a lot of material to work with. You have Hector Ayala, you have Daredevil. I think there's a lot of material to work with there. I just think, if we have that for 2 or 3 episodes, that would have been great. But they're really not interested in telling a lot of that story. I think they're trying to get to a certain place with Fisk and Matt.
I mean,
a
lot of it is
be done.
A lot of it is they are trying to get in this. It's so obvious in this season that they're trying to get us to the birth again.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is they could easily explore. They could easily explore more of it, but they have other stuff to accomplish,
and again,
which is great. I'm looking forward to it.
And ultimately, that's the biggest critique of these like setup seasons, is that they still most of the season are just setting up, and it's like we're gonna get season 2, and yeah, season 2 is probably going to be better because we don't have to wade through all of this pretense to get Matt back in the suit. And that's ultimately I think this would be a very different show if they had reshot the whole season back to being in line with more of like a Netflix season 4, because I think we wouldn't have had this, oh, won't he get back into the suit?
I mean, if they did continue straight off of if they hired all the same people back and had the same tone and this and that, yeah, season 4 of Netflix Daredevil would be vastly different than what Born Again is.
I mean,
that's where I don't want to judge this based on what
we got what that season would be like.
Yeah,
that first episode was probably the most Netflix season 4 thing that we could have gotten.
Yeah.
Ultimately, apparently I've heard that they also, like, I guess episodes 2, 3, 4, and 5, I want to say, and 6 were ones that they didn't really do a ton of reshoots. They did mainly like auxiliary reshoots, but then episode 1 and then 7, 8, and 9, they had major big reshoots to the point that I think the finale is a completely, like, fully reshot episode.
Could be.
Much like the first episode, which would make sense if you're trying to button it off and you have, like, retooled the show. It would make sense that those were the 2 episodes that you really had to just scrap and rewrite.
Yeah. With the exception of, like, the first 10 minutes of episode 1 with the bullseye stuff and the foggy stuff, I'm struggling to kind of see where the reshoot stuff was, so it'll be interesting to see how the season plays out.
True.
I do think they changed a lot of it, but as for what that original vision was,
I think we're going to start seeing more of it now that we're out of the White Tiger stuff.
Maybe.
I think that's going to be the thing. Is like, especially
I just got to have more bullseye. I just need more bullseye.
Yeah, from what I've heard, from what I've read, he doesn't come back until the season finale, maybe. But I think it's going to be interesting to see. I'm kind of like, I think one of the biggest worries going into the rest of this show, and when we go into season 4, is the handling of the corrupt cops and this Punisher squad, because this is a really really easy topic that they could just go full bore and just bury it all, essentially. And I don't think they're going to do that, but it's a little, I'm a little worried. But I'm excited to see Bernthal. Everything I've heard from, he's going to be directing his own Punisher special that's going to be coming out after this season, like later. And from everything I've heard, that's going to be dope.
Yeah, I have faith in Bernthal's interpretation of the Punisher, and at the end of the day, right, I think, gosh, with the cop stuff, there are definitely obviously real world parallels, but this is a fictitious group of cops that are really moving in different ways because the Punisher exists in the Marvel universe, right? True, so they're obviously going to take different steps than I think officers in the real world would do. Not that there is parallels there,
and we've seen it in the comics too. We've seen Punisher talk to cops that have like co-opted his symbol, and so it's going to be.
I think it's just going to be, if anything, it's going to be more obvious who those bad apples on the police force.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what I think too. I think it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be They're going to be very clear that these are corrupt cops, not indictment on all cops. Like, I think that I think they're
You
going
know,
to tie that line pretty well. I
yeah.
just know that there are going to be a lot of stupid woke lefties that I'm going to be talking mad shit in in my timeline against when this all drops, because they're going to be ignorant, and they're going to try to force this to make this their BLM anti-cop shit, and I'm gonna have to correct some kids.
Well, when it comes to all that, Russ, I'm gonna leave the Twitter sphere in your capable hands.
No, it's fun.
Um,
But yeah, I any last thoughts?
Actually, the more we talk about this episode, I do think my initial thoughts about it, I was a little bit disappointed. But the more we talk about it and more we kind of express where we think the series is going, I've softened a little bit. I never thought it was a bad episode. I was just a little bit disappointed. I'm not going to say it's a great episode because it did feel like it wasn't moving as much as the first two.
Sure.
I'm still hit or miss on Matt exposing White Tiger, but it was a decent episode. I still like it. I'm still very enamored with where everything's headed. So other than that, I don't have any more thoughts.
I think the last thing, just kind of looking at like the stylization of this show, obviously it's not like it is with the Netflix show. And to that, my one biggest thing that I've kind of rationalized it as, and maybe this is really crappy rationalization, but Matt's no longer in Hell's Kitchen. Matt moved. And
Right.
so a lot of that, the way I've been kind of thinking of it, is that he moved to a more gentrified area, a more just like mainstream area of New York.
I mean, probably he's far more successful than he was.
Exactly.
He's got money
and so,
now.
And so to that point, like, yeah, his apartment isn't going to be as cool as having giant neon signs flashing through the windows, because he's now thinking of other people than just the fact that, hey, I got it for dirt cheap because I'm blind.
Right.
And to that point, like, I still think there's some great scenes in this. There's some great, well shot scenes in this. When he walks into the courtroom, they made the courtroom, which is something that's really cool. They made the courtroom feel very church-esque to Matt. When he walks into the court and is waiting for the deliberation and them to come back with a verdict, and the courtroom's empty and he's standing there in the shadows and everything, it feels very much like he is like when he would go to the cathedral and the Catholic Church and sit there and kind of think through and wait for the father to come sit down and start talking to him. I thought that was really cool. I think that's a really cool.
It is. Now that you mention it, it is interesting that they're propping up. What do you call that? They're propping up the courtroom to be, like you said, his cathedral.
Yeah.
Because that's really all Matt has going on in his life right now is his profession, his career. So once you reintroduce Daredevil, that might be the way that they reintroduce his Catholic faith. And because his Catholic faith is what justifies his activity as Daredevil. You need the faith aspect to balance out his vigilantism. That's great. I actually like that. We'll see.
And I think
they're doing a disservice if they don't go back to exploring.
And I think we will. I think we will get there.
I do too.
I think especially with the fact that the focus of this show was really on it being a courtroom drama from the very beginning of their idea for this show. I think this is our way back into that. It's him thinking it's that dichotomy, because he is always at war with the two sides of himself. Like he wants to be the man without fear, but those fears are that devil inside of him. And so he has to let that devil out to be the man without fear.
Definitely.
And so currently it's solely focused on his life as as a prosecutor, or not a prosecutor. He's a
Defense attorney. Yeah.
defense attorney. And so that's where that drama is playing out. And as he becomes, and he starts allowing himself to accept that Daredevil mantle again, that's where we're going to start seeing the questions on the faith questions be brought back in. Hopefully.
That's a great point. You know, in regards to the faith thing too, that's a problem that many believers face, is they prop their career up on a pedestal and they let their faith slip and they lose sight of who they are. You know, and at the core of Matt's character is that guilt, is that sense of right and wrong, and that's through the eyes of his Catholic faith. So that's all great. That's really compelling. And also, we mentioned the whole courtroom aspect. I like District Attorney Hochberg.
Yes, I love that actor.
Fun. I think he's like
great.
A perfect slimy lawyer. Maybe he's totally unaware of like the cops' agenda. He did seem a little nervous and sweaty when Powell had to lie under oath. But just the way that he banters with Matt, I think, is fun. So that's like the last random thought I have. But I don't have anything else. Are you pretty much wrapped up?
I'm wrapped up. I think we're good.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. You know, the 12 views or whatever. But we're getting back into this. This is more just, you know, the two of us. We're going
to be sure to post the episodes. So
yes, I am going to do that. They'll be up. They'll be up tomorrow. Yeah. But again, thank you guys for coming. I think I have a little outro thing, so when I hit end stream, it will.
That'd be cool. My last thing, Russ, before we sign off, did you watch Invincible at all? I can't remember.
Yeah, so I'm caught up on Invincible.
Oh, right on. You're caught up. Nice. Me too.
Good. It's good.
It's awesome.
I've read. So I think we've talked about this on the show. I've read the entire series. So
okay, I have not. So the show is all I got.
I'm tracking where we're at. It's kind of
Invincible War was crazy. All the variants.
Invincible War was great. I think they did a really good job on that. It's funny that we're getting the rematch between Jeffrey Dean Morgan and
yes, I love that too. I love that too. The Walking Dead.
I don't know how much I like Jeffrey Dean Morgan's voice as Onslaught, but we will see. Not Onslaught.
I don't get that. I think he's got a really great. I don't know anything about the Conquest character, but I do think Jeffrey Dean Morgan has a really gruff. He's putting on sort of an older personality to it as well. I thought it fit. I don't know what the fuss is about, but
I think this is the reason. The voice I always had in my head for Conquest was Kratos.
Oh, okay, like a deep
voice,
like
yeah,
real a lot of
he's the guy that they send in to literally just put shit out, be done. This
Scorched Earth. Yeah, done. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great fight.
He's the nuclear option.
I gotcha.
But yeah, so we'll talk about that next week. But yeah, for the meantime, have a good weekend, guys.
Yeah,
or week and weekend, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Bye.